Have you ever been reading through a stack of comics and thought, maybe I should see what this Arkham Asylum game is all about? Or been playing Marvel vs. Capcom and felt like you were at a real disadvantage since you didn't know who half the characters were? Well, Play Comics is the show for you. I'm Chris, and each episode we take a look at video games based on comic properties and how well they stick to that source material. So whether you know the comics and want to know how all these games work, or you know the games and want to find out where all this craziness came from, go check out Play Comics at playcomics.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
From a fallout shelter somewhere under Seattle, Washington, it's the show you've been waiting for. Get ready to join your hosts, John and Kenric, as they talk comics, movies, and more. Now here's Spoiler Country!
Oh, United Army of the Spoilerverse! Welcome back to Spoiler Country. I'm Kenric, and that is Mr. Horsley. And today on the show, well, we're going to talk Scorsese, who would probably never find himself on the Spoiler Country. And we're going to talk about Francis Ford Coppola. But before we get into that, Johnny, let's talk about where you guys can hear us. Because if you're hearing us for the first time and you're on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, or you found our website, our amazing website, scpod.net, or you can even go to spoilerverse.com and get to our website if you so choose. We're also on all the we're everywhere. So if you have an Android phone or an iOS phone, just bring up your favorite podcatcher, do a search for Spoiler Country, and we come right up.
That's right. That's right. And you can, subscribe to us and get all of our episodes as they come out, as you should.
That's right. As you should. And we're also on all the social medias. So, we even have voicemail, right?
We do. 707-656-2080. 707-656-2080. Call. Leave us a voicemail. Tell us about your favorite Martin Scorsese film, which I have a hard time saying his last name, so I'm just going to call him Martin for the rest of the show.
There you go. Just call him Martin. And the thing is also, I don't know if anybody knows, but we have been talking about, and if you look at our show notes, we have it in every single thing, but the EYNES anthology is coming soon. We had a very successful Kickstarter back in the springtime, and we're getting close to shipping that first book. So keep an eye out for there. You can actually still order the book through Johnny's website at, EYNESanthology.com?
That is correct.
There you go. So you can look down in the show notes below and click right on it and go right to it. It's a wonderful book with a lot of artists, a lot of different writers, and there'll be something in there for everybody, I'm sure.
Well, everybody who likes horror and scary stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No. There's something in there.
Something for everybody, and we're just going to leave it at that.
Something for everybody, yes. It'll be a perfect book to get your 6-year-old.
Right.
Don't get that for your 6-year-old.
Yeah, don't. That'd be a bad. I mean, go ahead and do, and then I'm not going to tell you that I told you to get it, but I'll take the money for it.
Right. Don't ask for the money back once you've given the book.
Yeah, there's no refunds here.
Right. So, Martin Scorsese had an interview in where he said
basically
that Marvel films are not cinema.
Do you want to read the quote?
Go read the quote. You have it up?
I do have it up. He said, "I don't see them. I tried, but it's not cinema. Honestly, the closest I can think of them as well made as they are, with actors doing the best they can under their circumstances, is theme parks. It isn't cinema of human beings trying to convey emotional, psychological experiences to another human being."
Right. And I think that his interpretation of cinema, for me, is what he's trying to convey what Steven Soderbergh had said as a keynote speech in San Francisco International Film Festival back in, I think, 2016.
Right.
And he said the simplest way that I can describe, let me start that over. The simplest way that I can describe it is that a movie is something you see, and cinema is something that's made, he said, as reported by Deadline. It has nothing to do with your captured medium. It doesn't have anything to do with where the screen is. It's in your bedroom, your iPad. It doesn't even really have to be a movie. It could be a commercial. It could be something on YouTube. Cinema is specificity of vision. It's an approach in which everything matters. It's the polar opposite of generic or arbitrary, and the result is unique as a signature or a footprint or a fingerprint. It isn't made by a committee. It isn't made by a company. It isn't made by an audience. It means that if this filmmaker didn't do it, it either wouldn't exist at all or wouldn't exist in anything like this form. Soderbergh has a much cleaner way of saying what I think Scorsese was trying to say.
Right.
I don't actually agree with either one of them. And
why not?
Well, okay, let me put it this way. We're talking art. We're not talking 2 plus 2 equals 4. There is no argument. You have 2, you add 2, you have 4.
Well, there is an argument for that. There's actually a scientific paper that proves 2 plus 2 is 5. Like there's a mathematical term paper from a bunch of scientists and mathematicians that proves 2 plus 2 equals 5.
Okay. If I have 2 pennies and I add 2 pennies, how many pennies do I have?
Possibly 4, possibly 5.
No. How many pennies do I have? We're not doing possibilities because we're talking about absolutes. You want to get into quantum mathematics and everything else. That's bringing in a whole different realm. But in the third dimension, actually in the fourth, the dimension that we live in, put it that way.
In Earth 616.
Yeah, if I have 2 pennies and I add 2 more pennies, I have the total of 4 pennies. That's what it is. It's what we teach all our children in school still. And that's not going to change in our lifetime. We might get into higher elevated math that talks about quantum mathematics, and you can talk about Schrodinger's cat, and you can bring all this stuff in, and then you can sit there and give me all this stuff that, well, you can be to 5, but that's bullshit because you know the answer is 4 right now.
Well, I know the answer is 4.
And the reason that I'm saying this is this.
Answer.
Art is not the same as something that is physically or in front of you in a way that can't be disputed. Okay? You put the gas in the car, it goes. There's no gas, it doesn't go. Unless you have an electric car. I get it, but that's not the analogy that I'm using. But I can see your brain smoking from here. My point is this. Art is subjective. And because he doesn't feel that something is cinema, or that Soderbergh feels that it has to be made by a single individual, I just think that's bullshit. I think art is subjective to the person that is witnessing that art, or feeling that art, or seeing it, or however you want to say it, taste it, touching it, sensing it. Whatever it is, it's personal to them. And that's what makes why art can't be contained and it can't be censored. That's why it's important, because it's different for every single person who looks upon it. And to sit there and make an arbitrary statement that this isn't cinema because his schooling and his way of thought tells him that it's not is bullshit, because he's impressing his viewpoint of what art is to me. And that's why I don't agree with it. I think
but nowhere in
like
either
this,
one of those statements. But nowhere in either one of those statements does it say those movies aren't art.
Okay, then
then
why isn't cinema then?
Talks about art.
If it's not art, if you're not talking about the art of cinema, then just because he doesn't say the actual 3-letter word of art doesn't mean that's not what he's talking about. He's saying that it's not cinema, and cinema is an approach in which everything matters.
Right, but cinema would be, well, I mean, essentially, if you want to classify it as cinema, and under their definition, that's one classification of what makes a movie or makes a film or makes a short story or a short anything cinema, but that doesn't subject things that aren't cinema are not art. It's just saying that there's a certain specific type that qualifies a visual media to become cinema, whereas it becomes more than just a film or a movie. And then you know, as Soderbergh said, here's the, you know, quote unquote arbitrary, possibly, or whatever he wants to say about it. You know, here's a list of things that are the qualifiers for it, right, to make it cinema. But nowhere do either one of them say that what they're making is not art or not good or not entertaining. You're just saying under their qualifications for the word of what they see the word cinema to mean, this doesn't fit cinema, because cinema is something that has more things behind it. Like it's a filmmaker. It's not created by a committee. You know, it's one person's vision, not a company's vision. It's which makes sense to me of what would make something cinema. Doesn't make it not art. It's just they're using cinema as a word to define what this one thing is called for, you know, because think about it this way. If you go broad with it and go like genres, right? You can say, okay, a horror movie is not a romantic comedy, but you can have a romantic comedy horror movie, right? You can combine them, but there's different qualifiers that make something a horror movie, and there's different qualifiers to make something a rom-com, right? They're not mutually exclusive.
All of those are cinema.
All of those could be cinema, yes, based upon their definition.
Yeah, see,
right?
to me that speaks of elitism. And I hate that.
Yeah, sure, whatever.
And
But it's still not untrue.
Take it one step further then. If you're saying that, then that means it's up for interpretation on what cinema is from person to person.
Art's up for interpretation.
That's what I was saying. That's exactly what I was saying.
No, you were saying they're saying it's not art. Nobody's saying it's not art.
No, I said art is interpretive.
interpretation.
I did say that because that's how I'm taking his interpretation of what he's saying. But to me,
you're
art
projecting
is
onto what they're
interpretive. I
saying,
had
adding
a
to it,
full
though.
diatribe of how art is personal.
Art is personal,
Okay,
right?
So him saying,
doesn't mean-
but you just got done telling me that cinema has all these things and it can be specific. You know, not all rom-com is cinema, but all rom-com is a movie. But at the same time, what defines what that rom-com is? So one person has to make it, has to be the director. So to me, it sounds like one person has to be the director, the writer, the producer, the editor, the cinematographer.
That's not. You're looking way too far into it. It's saying that it's what they're saying in cinema here is that it's like, okay, look, let's break it. Let's take it to comic books, right? Okay, what is more of let's use the word passionate comic book making,
Sure.
right? Who is more passionate in making comics? I know this is going to be arbitrary, but just follow me.
No.
here,
I think I know where you're going.
Stephen Frank making Silver, right? Or Scott Snyder making Batman. Both of them have passion for what they're doing, but one of them is driven by a company behind them telling them what they can and cannot do, affecting their vision, therefore altering what they're trying to say, and one of them does whatever the hell they want and makes it out and puts it out there. Right? That's the that's the difference, right? Is the people making the film, are they making the film they want to make without outside sources, the brass, the people in the suits above them saying, no, you can't do this, or no, we have to do this to include these other things into this for this bigger picture thing, or no, we can't say that because people might not like that. Are they doing it because they're being told to by somebody else, or are they doing it because them as the filmmaker are making a decision to cut something out? That's the different right there. That is
You think that's the difference?
They are saying.
You think the fact that
they are saying
they're pigeonholed
cinema versus movie.
Let me. I want to paraphrase so that way you can say yes, you got it, or I don't. Is that fair?
Go for it.
So you're saying basically that Kevin Feige has complete control in all of the things that happen in the Marvel Universe. So when you have what's the brother's name that did Civil War and Endgame and everything, the directors that did those movies, I can't remember their name off the top of my head.
I don't know. I can't think of it
But
now.
they can't just do what they want because they have to get permission from Kevin Feige.
The Russo brothers.
Yeah, the Russo brothers.
Right.
Yeah, they have to get permission from Kevin Feige.
They don't get... Yeah.
And Kevin Feige on top of that, because then my argument could be, well, then why can't Kevin Feige just it's still cinema because Kevin Feige's vision, he's the one that's driving everything. But then you can take it one step further and say, well, no, because he has a board of directors he has to attribute to, and there's money involved.
Even before you get there, though, he's disqualified from calling it cinema from Kevin Feige because Kevin Feige's not making the movies. He's deciding a direction, somebody else is making it, right? Based upon what they're saying, my interpretation of what they're saying is that cinema is a vision that's made by the filmmakers, not a vision that's made by people above the filmmakers, right?
Smells of elitism.
As soon as you're above the directors and on the people and the writers and on the movie, then you're above the filmmakers, right? That means that you have somebody else outside of the actual filmmaking process. Why is Kevin Feige is probably super involved in the overall art of the different movies, right? He's still not directing, writing, that kind of stuff each movie, and it's
very much by committee.
By committee.
It's very much by committee,
not by people.
But But the thing is, Johnny, I don't agree with that. I don't think why does teamwork and committee have to be a bad thing?
It doesn't have to be a bad thing.
That's
but
the interpretation that I'm getting from that.
Okay, look at Justice League.
Yeah.
Okay, that movie was made by committee, had a bunch of changes happen, not because of the filmmaker Scott Snyder or the filmmaker Joss Whedon wanted them to happen, because Warner Brothers changed it. Look at Suicide Squad, because Warner Brothers changed it.
Man of Steel, they didn't change. That was all Scott Snyder.
That we know of.
Or Zack Snyder.
Not Zack Snyder. Yeah. That we know of, right? Yeah, that we know of, right? And I'm sure there was stuff
are you so apt on this whole cinema thing? Like, to me, I don't like it. I think it reeks of elitism.
I hate it. I think he's being an elitist dickwad, but I think it's an elitist bullshit comment.
I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it.
Right?
You're not going to convince me.
But he's not
that it's right.
I don't want to convince you, but I don't think he's wrong. He's not wrong on what he's saying. I think
he is wrong.
What he's saying doesn't need to be said.
See, that's the thing. I think that cinema in itself is Okay, like if you just look at the word cinema, I sent you a Google search. You're like, oh yeah, you can Google search. But at the same time, there is daft meaning in this Google search of saying movie is slang for a motion picture. Film is the medium on which motion pictures are fixed. If you're defining
just the word cinema, cinema, if you're defining just as the word cinema.
Cinema is French cinematography, which comes in part from the Greek kinema, meaning movement. So cinema, this seems to be happening more and more where we're taking words and applying more meaning than they need to be. You know, cinema is just a moving picture. Why does it have to have all these other contingents to say, well, that's not cinema, this is cinema because I made it?
Okay. Well, so there's got, okay. I hear you just saying, right? I get it. However, there is a difference and a distinction between a movie made by committee and a movie made by a filmmaker with a passion, right? Can we agree on that?
Sure, of course.
Okay. How do you, then give it a word?
Well,
pick any word you want. Pick
usually
any word you want to define that.
In the back, it was always called art house movies or art house cinema. And then that was something that was defined by an independent filmmaker. To art house cinema, then. No, it doesn't.
It's just a word, though. Like you're arguing over a word because that word cinema has a definition, and you define that word as being synonymous to a movie or a film, whereas they're defining that word to mean a certain type of movie or film. It's a different. They're just defining it differently than you are.
That. We already have a phrase that means that.
What's the phrase? Art house cinema.
Of course.
That still has the word cinema in it. They're just dropping the art house from the front of it. It's the same thing.
So just call it art house. Call it an independent. Now we're arguing over a word. That's whatever. But to use cinema as, to me, it feels like they're using cinema as a curse word. Not as a curse word, but as a way to downgrade something else. And it comes across as, I don't like what they did. It's not cinema. So I don't know how to define what I don't like about it, but it's not cinema. It's a theme ride. What the fuck does that mean? So it's not cinema because you don't enjoy it, because it doesn't speak to you because you're old as fuck and you couldn't. No,
it's not his definition of cinema because of all the other things we talked about before. Right. And he may be saying it because he doesn't like it or whatever.
But that's the whole point of what
the term of what they're defining cinema as. It makes it to where they're defining it in a certain way. You can change the word cinema to whatever you want. You can call it. It's not, dog farts for all I give a shit. But the way they're defining the word cinema, they're not wrong. I don't like it, but the way they're saying it is these movies are not made by filmmakers with a vision and a passion going through and put. And I don't mean to say people who make these movies, the MCU, the DC movies, don't have passion. They're not right. They don't love what they're doing. They're not doing it for the fun of doing it. What I'm saying is, right? They're not creating it, and they're not doing it for. There's people behind them. They're not. I don't know. As I said before, I don't like. I think it's elitist. I don't like them saying this shit. I think it's pointless to be completely honest. But I also don't disagree with the fact that there's a difference between certain types of movies and the Marvel movies. But I also think that it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah. Well, okay. You and I actually agree on that, right? One, it doesn't matter. Two, I understand what they're trying to say. I think the way they're doing it is obtuse. You know what I'm saying? It's fucking dumb. And the fact that they're creating this elitist stature with themselves by saying this shit is annoying. That's my problem.
It is annoying.
And to use the word cinema like it's supposed to be some high art compared to everything else. That's bullshit, because that would mean almost every porno made in California where it's just one guy finding some chick on the street that's willing to suck his dick while he's doing a point of view or whatever, and then puts it up there and makes money, that would be cinema. And that's just ridiculous.
Well, is he trying to convey an emotional, psychological experience to another human being?
Of course he is. It's porn. I'm just saying, dude. Literally from what their definition, from what Soderbergh says, and from what Martin Scorsese is basically saying, to me, they're basically saying that porn is better than the Marvel universe.
Well, no, I don't. So I don't think they're saying it's better.
But you get what I'm saying.
They're just saying it doesn't qualify as what their definition of what cinema means. It might, but I don't think it would miss other things.
Hits everything they're saying is constitutes to be cinema. And so I think that's the problem with it. You got these people that are so elitist in their filmmaking, and you know what? They're lucky to be in the position they're in, right? I mean, freaking Scorsese wanted De Niro so bad for The Irishman, he freaking did an anti-aging, which was stupid. Why not just use a young guy? Shit,
Yeah,
you could have put Colin Farrell in that freaking role, and it would have been great still.
Yeah,
But but he hasn't put anything out that's of cultural value to the point of being where the world would be different because it's not in there, either as Marvel. So to sit there and come across with that type of statement, to me,
I'd actually argue the opposite of what you just said. I would think Marvel would have more cultural value than Scorsese.
well, you might.
I would argue that that Marvel does have a cultural impact. If you removed Marvel or comic books from the world, it would be more of an impact.
I
than
agree
Scorsese
with
in the
that.
world.
I mean, but we're two big comic book geeks. But and that's the other thing, dude. I feel like just because he doesn't like the experience, because I think that's what it comes down to. There's some of it is ego driven. Some of it is driven by jealousy because anybody making movies at that level is egocentric, and they're going to have a lot of jealousy because they're not getting the same type of play and they're not getting the same type of hype right now, right? And that's fine. I mean, that drives a lot of people, and that doesn't really bother me. But when he says the things that he says, that they're not really, because to me, I felt like he was saying there's no artistic value in those movies, and it takes it. I think of the 80 years of comic book writing that all these people did all this stuff. Do you think a lot of these writers were thought of in high regard in the 40s and 50s? No, they were embarrassed to say that they were comic book writers. A lot of them were. Not all of them, but a lot of them were. Stan Lee has a whole story about not wanting to tell people at dinner parties with his wife what he did because he wanted to be a serious writer. And I think a lot of them felt that way. And we have but over the course of time, I believe that comic books as a whole has taken, now it's a form that people look to want to get their stories out. Take Mouse, for example. Can you see Mouse being done in any other type of format and be as effective as it is?
No, but I think we're getting. I see what you're saying. I agree with you.
I think he threw 80 years of history down the fucking trash when he says it like that.
Well, but he's not talking about the comic book industry as a whole. He's talking about the Marvel films, right? Like, you can't compare Amazing Spider-Man to Mouse, right? It's just that's like comparing Dumb and Dumber to fucking Grapes of Wrath. You know, it's different.
Yeah, but my point was, I guess part of that stems from a different conversation we had with Casey Tickle Monster Allen,
official name,
where he's talking about that it's a disposable that was made cheaply to throw away for kids.
It was, for sure.
It was, and I don't think it's
more from that.
Yeah, it's changed a lot, and I don't know that he made that point that it's changed or that he still feels that way, that it is that way today. Which I don't know. Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't.
And comic books as a whole, going the indie route, going the mainstream route, going the superhero route, going the whatever route, have always pushed the envelope of what's societally acceptable, right? Because things will typically happen in comic books first before they happen in movies. Like, people will touch subjects in comic books in that format before they'll touch them on the big screen or on the TV screen, which is about fine.
Homophobia and everything else in comic books in the 80s before anybody else was even daring to do anything like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they had black lead characters and female lead characters in the 30s and 40s before the movies were doing that shit. So,
you know what I found out today? Because you just said that. Did you know Betty Boop was black? I didn't know that. She was Baby Esther, and then when she started to become more of an icon locally, they whitewashed her and called her Betty Boop. I was like, what? That's messed up.
Same reason why Kato from Green Lantern became not Japanese during the war.
That's just great. Well,
he was Japanese to begin with. Then he quickly became like Chinese or something after the war started.
World War II. Oh,
yeah,
that's nuts. So this is an interesting. But getting back into our whole thing, this is an interesting conversation. It's weird because you took his comments completely different than I did. I was offended. I was like,
I want to keep the record straight that I don't like his comments, and I think he's an asshole for saying.
I know. But you're saying, look, if you're looking at what he's specifically saying, and that the way that cinema is made, that he's saying cinema constitutes, these things have to happen in cinema for it to be cinema, and they're doing everything by committee. Like if you look at Soderbergh's statement about what constitutes cinema, and I think that's what Scorsese was trying to allude to. I just think he did it in a weird way, but I think he was.
It's essentially like
and I think that's what you're saying. Look, he's right. These movies aren't made, as a single individual. There's all these things that go into effect that could be changed, this and that. I'm saying, my thoughts is it shouldn't matter how the cinema or the film or the movie, however you want to call it, is made, right? Do you enjoy it? Yes or no? Does it bring you a certain type of feeling? Yes or no? Does it affect you in a way, good or bad? And if the answer is yes, then there shouldn't be a difference between calling one cinema and one not. They're both a film that you enjoyed or not. And that's all that really matters at the end of the day.
Well, when you're talking about enjoyment levels, absolutely, for sure. But when you're talking about breaking down what the movies are and what's behind the movies, there's a difference. It's like, you can't put Moby Dick in the same genre or the same, level of scrutiny as far as what it is as to like, Hickory Dickory Dock, Is there two... They're both literature,
that might
but they're
be,
vastly
there might be an
fucking
argument
different.
there. Children's literature has a lot of deep meaning that people don't always go, and it showcases
100%, but they
values.
are completely different in context, completely different in background of how they're made.
You could say
but they're
Alice in
both
Wonderland
literature.
and Moby Dick are on the same level, and you could look at Dr. Seuss and say, you know what? If you look at the breadth of Dr. Seuss work, he's might be more influential than anything that the what's his name from Moby Dick did.
But that's not the argument.
it's
though.
not.
The argument is behind what they are, and you can't. And also, just based on what they are, Dr. Seuss is a picture book, whereas Moby Dick is a full on written book.
Yeah.
They're different
Yeah,
genre and types
it's a
of
different
books.
medium. Well, not a different medium because they're both paper, but it's a different.
But it is a different medium because comic books is a different medium than literature books,
Yeah.
and picture books different than literature books. So it's a different
Picture
medium, right?
books.
So all I'm saying is I agree with you in the fact that fucking if you enjoy it, you enjoy it. Who gives a shit? If you like watching paint dry on a wall for 30 hours, that's good for you. If you like watching videos of some guy playing games on YouTube, great. I don't really give a shit. But there is a fundamental difference to certain types of movies versus other types of movies.
Yeah.
Right? There's a fundamental difference to how certain things get made and the passion that goes into them, and not just the passion, but like the control, right? It's a control factor, right? Because a filmmaker has control of what they're doing. A director typically does not. They're held to studio standards and what the studio is wanting to do. Even Kevin Smith talks about this, where he couldn't do a come and hair joke in his movie, but they let the Farley brothers do it in Something About Mary,
Right.
and it worked out great for them, right? It comes down to, I mean, again, I don't agree with the fucking shit they're saying. I don't like it, but
Sure.
I get it.
Well,
I
you're
get
just
it. I
trying to
just don't
take
think
it
it's
for what it is and saying, well, this is what they're saying constitutes cinema. And if you look at it in that and into those areas, Marvel Pictures doesn't fit into that. But at the same time, I'm saying
that doesn't
that's
mean that-
bullshit because cinema is cinema. And to me, if it makes it to a movie house and to your theater, it's a fucking cinema. And that's it. Actually, to me, that's what should constitute being in, because you go to the cinema.
So that means every Netflix movie is not cinema.
It could be. It could be. I'm not saying that it's right, dude. I'm not saying that I'm not saying that I'm right.
Now you're gatekeeping.
Yeah, totally
Now you're
gatekeeping. I'm a gatekeeper, motherfucker. But no, I'm just saying that.
Fucking cinema gate.
But you do say you go to the cinema, right?
Some people do. I've fucking never said
You've
that
never
shit. I
said
say
that
go to the
ever in
movies.
your life? Yeah, I'm going to
Fuck
the movies.
no.
That's
I'm
it. Did you go to the
I'm
cinema?
not 90 years
You
old.
never been asked
I'm
that?
not 90
Did you go to the
years old.
cinema?
No.
Never?
No.
I just it just reeks of elitism. And I just
It is 100% elitism.
And it's wrong. I think it's categorically wrong to sit there and tell me that cinema has to be made a certain way, because I just think that's bullshit. It's bullshit.
So if they changed their word, would you feel
I
less,
think if
less
they
about
made it where exactly what they're saying, but you can't take a generic word that has for over a century meant one thing and decide that it means something else. That's just ridiculous.
They called it dog farts. Would you be okay with it?
Sure, call it dog fart. Then taxi driver is
There.
dog fart.
Taxi driver is dog farts. The Wolf of Wall Street is dog
Yep,
farts.
I've never watched that one, Wolf of Wall Street. I heard it's pretty good though,
Oh my god, it's
but it's a little over the top.
so over the fucking top. And actually, it's a good movie. It's entertaining. But at the end of the movie, it just made me mad. I was just mad at the movie. I was just like, fuck this movie.
But he
fuck
elicited
that
a
guy,
response.
fuck
He elicited
everybody
an
involved.
emotion. That's good.
Well, I never watched it again. So.
Well, I mean, I do like a lot of Scorsese films. I loved Goodfellas. I loved The Departed. I liked, Taxi Driver's a little heavy, and to me, I watched it. I'm just like, and I watched it when I was like a teenager.
I watched it once. It was okay. I never saw it again. Though. That's the thing. I think that's a big difference there. I mean, you can say, well, let's go ahead. Let's agree. And just follow me for this for a second, okay? Just agree with me for this. Let's agree to give them the word cinema, and they can say they're not cinema. But I can tell you this: I've never rewatched a Scorsese film or a Coppola film or a Soderbergh film, but I've rewatched Marvel films so many fucking times.
Well, I'm not going to agree because then you will push that onto me forever.
I said fucking agree, goddammit.
But I have watched The Godfather Part 2 a bunch. It's one of the greatest movies ever made, I think. But Godfather 3 is crap, and everything Coppola has done after Godfather 2 has not been that good. Apocalypse Now is shit. I don't...
Okay, but comparatively, how many times have you watched a Marvel film?
Yeah, that's the thing. With Marvel films, I've watched a bunch, you know? And I've watched a bunch.
Exactly.
And you're talking about somebody who grew up in the 80s, so I watched E.T. a million times, and I watched Indiana Jones a million times, and I watched... but you know what? By comparison, that's a good point. Actually, what about Indiana Jones? Is that cinema then?
Who knows? I mean, I
George
would
Lucas
say
and Steven Spielberg. It's made by committee. It's two fucking people. Can't be more than that. Can't be more than one.
Well, I mean, there was a studio behind it, but I don't know how much studio had control.
How about Star Wars?
Star Wars is 100% not cinema by their definition because Fox had a lot of influence behind it.
Does that sound right to you, though? One of the most influential films of all time, not considered cinema?
Right? It's crazy. It
just doesn't make sense. What they're saying and how they're portraying it doesn't make sense. That's why I'd prefer to call independent films like Taxi Driver or like, they're not even independent, but you know what I mean, that are completely made by one person and whatever, is art house. I prefer that than calling it cinema, because at least then you're clearly defining that you're talking about a film that is made from one mind, right? But even that is bullshit, because
cinema,
all of those films
see it.
have had direction from producers. Because God damn it, man, if you're an executive producer and you gave somebody $10 million to make Godfather back in 1974, you're goddamn right you're going to have some influence on that.
I mean, honestly, though, by their definition, anybody who has any kind of influence that's not them does not make cinema. So
yeah,
unless Scorsese is saying that nobody has ever influenced any of his movies ever, no matter what, then he doesn't make cinema either, according to his own definition.
So it sounds like you agree with me.
No, I agree with myself.
Try to sneak it in. Hey guys, there you guys go. That is we have two sides there. I think overall we both feel the same way. We're just the way that we interpret what cinema is and what they are saying is different. And if you agree with Johnny, let us know. Give us a shout out on a tweet, or maybe a reply on Facebook, or however you want to do it. Or if you agree with me, Kenric, let us know.
Or comment on the web. Put a comment on the website, scpod.net.
Even better.
Find this episode and throw a comment down there.
Even better. So check it out. Maybe we'll finally end this argument on that.
I think
you know what? There's a lot, so people know. We had a long conversation in our chat room, and it was funny because if people have seen just Johnny and I's chat, you'll see that we kind of do this with each other all the time, and we kind of go back and forth, and we'll see things differently, even if we feel the same way, which is super interesting. And when you look at people and the way they interact with each other, you know, and it's just dumb because really it comes down to language and the way you interpret language and the way you interpret what you're reading. You know, it's really funny about this whole thing. Like before you and I got into the little tiff, it wasn't even a tiff. Though. It was more of us trying to one up each other, really.
Right. Well, I was talking with Robert Slavinsky, from Shooting the Sith, in chat earlier today, because he was writing an article about this whole Scorsese thing, about how it's stupid and dumb. And I was like, you know what, Robert, I'm going to write a counter article that argues the opposite side to you. So I was already working on this, like how to defend it.
Right.
So so you guys should go to the website right now and read both Robert's article talking about how it's wrong, and then my article defending their interpretation of the word cinema. Right? Which if you read the whole thing, you'll get it. Hopefully, you'll get it. But you and I start going off back and forth at each other with this whole thing, and Robert's messaging me, goes, "Does he know you're kidding? Does he know that you're fucking around?" And I'm like, "Yeah, he's fine."
That's awesome. Well, it was funny because as we were going, I started messaging you going, I wonder if they think that we're actually mad at each other.
Which made me laugh even more. So I was like, oh, God.
You should have screenshotted that and sent it to him. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that show. I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation. It's a kind of a quick fire one today. And maybe we'll try to do some more of these kind of quick fires. Have a subject, bash it out, and then go from there.
Oh, hey, we're forgetting something, Kenric.
Please inform.
This might not be a big deal or not, but this is our 200th episode.
Wait, what?
Yeah, this is episode 200. Congratulations, I guess.
Yeah, congratulations. Weird.
Yeah. So, yeah. I guess that's a show.
That is a show. Well, there you guys go. Oh, here's the 200 more.
Here's a 500
Right?
more.
500 more, 10,000 more. We're going to keep going until these wheels fall off.
Until I can't talk
Yes.
no more.
Until my stroke comes in.
Right.
All right, guys, we're out of here. Later. Oh,
So yeah.
open the mind.
You forgot. Read more. You almost forgot that.
Almost did.
So much fun.